There's a ton of noise out there. So how do you get decision makers to pay attention to your brand? Start a podcast and invite your ideal clients to be guests on your show. Learn more at sweetfishmedia.com.
You're listening to B2B Growth, a daily podcast for B2B leaders. We've interviewed names you've probably heard before, like Gary Vaynerchuk and Simon Sinek, but you've probably never heard from the majority of our guests. That's because the bulk of our interviews aren't with professional speakers and authors. Most of our guests are in the trenches leading sales and marketing teams. They're implementing strategy. They're experimenting with tactics. They're building the fastest growing B2B companies in the world. My name is James Carberry. I'm the founder of Sweetfish Media, a podcast agency for B2B brands, and I'm also one of the co-hosts of this show. When we're not interviewing sales and marketing leaders, you'll hear stories from behind the scenes of our own business. We'll share the ups and downs of our journey as we attempt to take over the world. Just kidding. Well, maybe. Let's get into the show.
Welcome back to the B2B Growth Show. I'm your host for today's episode, Sean Blackburn with Sweetfish Media. I'm joined today by Yoli Chisholm. She is the Vice President of Marketing over at Sprinklr. Yoli, how are you doing this morning?
I'm excellent. Thank you so much for having me, Sean.
It's a pleasure, and thanks for being on the show. Today, we're going to be talking about how to build a modern revenue marketing team, something I'm really excited about hearing about. But before we jump in there, if you could just tell our listeners a little bit about you and your background and what it is that you guys do over at Sprinklr.
Sure. Thank you. So once again, I really appreciate you having us on the B2B Growth Show. We are really fans of the show here at our marketing and sales org. And I joined Sprinklr having been a champion customer at Microsoft because I believed in the Sprinklr vision, which is really to become the world's most loved enterprise software company. And by really helping our organizations, enterprise organizations, make their customers happier, which I thought was really unique for an enterprise organization to really want to become the most loved software. So we're really proud to work with some of the most loved brands like Nike, Procter & Gamble, and NASA, and McDonald's. And they use our unified platform to reduce silos across customer-facing departments through our social messaging, our digital, our CXM, and customer experience management capabilities. But it's really about how do we enable and really live and breathe the notion that experience is the new brand, and how do we help our customers make their customers happier.
I love that. And that is so key as far as the customer experience. And I love how you guys unify that across so many different platforms. I was doing some research on Sprinklr and, and I'm not sure if this number is still accurate, but on your LinkedIn, you mentioned 23 different platforms that you guys can monitor through your social listening. And I just thought that was indicative overall of, as marketers, how much overload we have, 23 different platforms to be paying attention to. Couldn't even name the 23. I was trying to even just come up with the different social networks in my head. And I was like, man, I think I'm missing some here because I'm not getting to that 23. But maybe just speak to that a little bit as far as, kind of the overwhelming task at keeping those different experiences all united under one banner.
Yeah, I mean, when you think about it, with the mobile phone and with social networks, there are billions of conversations, public conversations that are happening. Customers and consumers belong to over 26 social networks and are having conversations and talking about your brand on millions of blogs and forums and review sites. And if you think about that challenge for a marketing and sales organization, it's really about how do you show up across all the touch points that are relevant to the buyer's journey, that's relevant to your product. It's a really huge challenge to understand each of these channels, how to engage in those channels in an authentic way. And really, with the fourth industrial revolution, what we've really seen is, in terms of how sales and marketing has evolved over time, we've moved from with the first industrial revolution, it was really about water and steam power used to sort of, evolve production facilities. And the second, it was really about electricity, and it was about, mass production. With the third, in the computing age, IT systems and automated production. And in terms of how that evolved marketing and sales, you had sort of the broadcast mass media, and it was scaled anonymous to anonymous users. And the fourth industrial revolution with social and the mobile phone, we're really back to one-to-one marketing. And that has huge impacts in terms of how you go to market, at both as a sales org and as a marketing org. And, we've really found that you really have to have the right mindset, the right skill set, and the right tool set to compete in this world and actually show up in terms of how consumers want to engage with you. They want to have a conversation.
Absolutely. And how is it that you have seen maybe some examples of, how have you coached this switch in mindset, like you said, the one to many back down to a conversation and something that's organic, that's one to one. Now, how have you helped customers and clients make that transition?
Yeah, I really use this framework a lot, the one of thinking about mindset, skill set, tool set. In terms of mindset, you really have to understand the consumer is in control. They will talk about your brand anywhere with you or about you.
Yes.
What we're also seeing is with apps like Uber and Seamless and Airbnb, consumers and customers have become conditioned to much better experiences. And then with the advances in technology, consumers also expect you to know more about them. So it's no longer just about access to tons of data, but more about how you use that data across business units, and how do you make sure that every department has access to the same data and has the same view of the customer, so that you're not interrupting the customer journey. You think about the classic customer care case where the consumer's like, I just told you that same information to the person that you just forwarded me to. And so
right.
one of the areas that we really focus on our technology in terms of is enabling that unified access and 360-degree of the customer across multiple business units and removing the data silos. But really, the mentality has to be moving from this, what we call a silo mentality, to an integrated mentality. That even means how you work with each other and your fellow coworkers across the business units. Marketing and sales, marketing and care and sales. That all has to be integrated. And it's not only about, the data and the technology, but it's even how you work. The second thing is kind of skill set. The sales teams have to become more social. Social selling has become a whole discipline. And what we've seen is that the sellers who are most socially savvy have the most sales opportunities. Even executive leaders have become more social. Marketers have become more data-driven and more scientific, have to balance out that creative and analytical side. We're hiring data scientists on marketing teams. We're hiring data journalists, and we're cultivating the skills to be able to do the analysis that really delivers actionable insights. And then the frontline, community managers, they have to have a specific skill set. They have to be the kind of person who's curious, to make a connection, engaging, authentic. They have to know your products back and forth, and they have to represent the company's brand values. They are really the face, and having those one-on-one conversations with your prospects or customers. And the last thing is really the tool set. How do we make sure that there's the infrastructure, the technology, MarTech, ad tech that's integrated, and the what we call front office technology, all the customer-facing technology. Make sure that teams have access to the best and most innovative ways of creating that seamless experience for customers.
think that's fantastic. And you mentioned just customer expectations changing. Customers want to align with companies that they share values with. How do you center your team's efforts around your customers' values and speak that to them and communicate that to them in a succinct way across different platforms?
Yeah, that one's, it's really interesting. You don't want to be that company that is called out for being tone deaf,
Right.
which is right, which is sometimes a byproduct of a company that really hasn't expanded their insights and their intelligence around their customers to include other factors. It's one thing to know your customers' pain points and business challenges, but do you know the other things they care about, their values and beliefs? So you really have to empower your team to have the right intelligence. Absolutely. Know your customer, understand their pain points, but also understand that they're already really well researched before they even meet with you. So, in those interactions, you have to really deliver business value. You have to have a pulse on what the data says about who your customer really is and what they care about. And on your teams, you really do have to have a diversity of voices and points of view at the table so you can eliminate any blind spots you might have, whether it's, as you're creating an ad, you can think about, Avon recently with sort of the body shaming sort of controversy. You think about, Gucci with the sort of blackface controversy. You think about, Nike on the positive end with the call, making the call to do the Colin Kaepernick campaign. And so, at the end of the day, you really want to be able to provide your teams the confidence and the right intelligence that their campaign has a probability of really hitting the right tone. And that really comes down to, leveraging the right technology to have the right insights.
Today's growth story is all about search engine marketing. The company we're highlighting is SentinelOne. This challenger cybersecurity brand was set out to disrupt the endpoint protection space. Their brand was top-notch, their product was innovative, but they were struggling to gain traction online in an already developed industry. Then they found Directive Consulting, a B2B search marketing agency. Within the first quarter of working with Directive, SentinelOne was able to increase their organic traffic by 128% and overall lead volume by an outstanding 251%. Now, I have a hunch that Directive can get these kind of results for you too. So head over to directiveconsulting.com and request a totally free custom proposal. That's directiveconsulting.com. All right, let's get back to this interview.
I think that's fascinating. And I think, when it comes to even how we're picturing this, it's not what you think you are as a company. It's really what your customers think you are and what your customers think that you are saying. And it's kind of a weird mind shift, but I think that that's fantastic that you guys enable your customers to be able to see what their customers think about them in the conversations they're having. In the modern sort of marketing team, at least the one that I'm a part of here at Sweetfish, and I know many of our customers are sitting in teams that are fragmented and segmented to different remote places, different time zones. How does that play into this whole conversation about being connected to one another and being on the same page?
Yeah, I mean, there was a time where working remote was a novel, thing, but really, companies that want to attract, really talented, professionals have to be able to sort of be flexible and enable having the right technology and the right sort of mindset from a leadership standpoint to enable people to work anywhere they want, but still be able to collaborate with the right tools and have access to the right data. And so we really try to, we have all kinds of, folks that work in the office, folks that work remote, but we do have a couple of unique things that we have done to drive tighter alignment particularly between sales and marketing. So we do have a unique organizational model where our inside sales team actually sits inside the marketing organization. And the entire marketing team is oriented to make that team successful. And so we have a sales team that actually is in the marketing organization. And then they interface with the broader sales team. But inside sales is a marketing function, and everything we're doing is to make the inside sales team successful, which I thought was quite unique. I've worked at organizations like Microsoft and eBay, and I'd never encountered that. So that was one thing that I found quite unique. The other thing that we're doing is what we call social ABM. And it's essentially a customer experience center, which is what some would call a social command center that works with our sales team to drive outreach in social and surround and support the same efforts that the sales team's doing, but to do that in social. And it's really about moving back to what we talked about earlier, moving from, marketing strategies that are sort of one to many to this one to one. And so our community managers have the same target list that our sales team does. They know exactly who we're trying to engage with on the buying committee, and they are supporting the sales efforts with engagement. We've even had sales leads sort of originate from activities that have happened in social with our community managers, just doing that one-to-one engagement in social on Twitter. And
wow.
We've had meetings come from those efforts. And fortunately, we use our own technology. So Sprinklr has the ability to set up what we call macros and rules and drive that engagement. So if a target customer who's on our CRM list has engaged with a community manager in social, that engagement and that activity is the sales, the account manager is alerted, and they actually can see the activity and what that engagement entails in the same sort of platform that the community manager is using. So the same platform that our sales team uses, the same platform that the community manager is using. And then they can then use that social engagement as an icebreaker to re-engage with the prospect. And there are a number of things that we're doing in that area. But all of this sort of just speaks to setting up your teams in a way that they're really tightly aligned. They have the same goals. We have the same business objectives from the top all the way down, and we're organized to make those, to be able to successfully sort of make those objectives come to fruition. And so it's really about enabling, giving teams the right technology, setting them up the right way. And then I would say, having the flexibility to fail because there's an experiment. We do a bunch of experiments in advertising. We do a bunch of experiments in social and also experimenting in sales. And so I would say marketing has probably brought that experimentation sort of culture into the sales org and vice versa. And it's making it fun.
What an incredible tool that you guys have. And I love that idea of even, having the inside sales team as part of the marketing team. So that's fantastic. I really appreciate you sharing your perspective on that. If someone's in our audience and they're managing us, either the sales team or the marketing team, what would be your encouragement to them as far as creating a team that is going to be able to reduce those silos and really take social listening to the next level?
Yeah, no, I think, you need the right technology. We'd love it for it to be us, but, the technology exists today where you can really think about moving away from the point solution mentality to a platform. The challenges with the point solutions is that they're not connected. The cost of ownership is quite high. And in terms of the integrations, they're never as seamless as you'd like them to be. And so, you want to be able to have a platform that enables multiple multiple business units to work together and leverages the use cases that they need, but also enables them to have the same view of the customer. And so, that's one of the things that our technology, the benefits of our technology, and reducing that silos, between departments really opens up just a ton of insights and a ton of, I guess, changes in business processes. And
one of the examples that we always find interesting is that, you'll have the customer care organization who has these KPIs where they're kind of measured on how quickly they can get, customers off the phone, or, how difficult, they can make it for consumers to actually reach them. Where you've got on the other side of the building, you've got the marketing organization that's trying to drive engagement, increase time spent, they're trying to make their experiences more sticky. And you've got, two teams within the same organization that are sort of have KPIs that are really in conflict. And so, in the modern revenue marketing organization and an organization where sales is connected to marketing and the care teams are aligned, you really have to kind of rationalize your KPIs and rationalize what you're trying to do. And that comes from having you really a customer-centric and really truly a customer-centric approach in how you set up your marketing tech stack and how you think about data and how you organize your teams. And so it's really a shift across how you go to market and how you think about your business and how you organize your team.
Well, I love that, Yoli, and thanks so much for sharing all this. I love your perspective on, how you guys help people build a modern revenue marketing team. If anybody has any questions and wants to follow up with you or would like to connect with Sprinklr, what's the best way for them to find you?
Yeah, they can, anybody can connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm Yoli Chisholm, or on Twitter at Yoli Chisholm, and through our website, Sprinklr.com.
Well, Yoli, thanks so much again for being on the show. Really appreciate having you on.
Thank you so much for having me.
We totally get it. We publish a ton of content on this podcast, and it can be a lot to keep up with. That's why we've started the B2B Growth Big Three, a no-fluff email that boils down our 3 biggest takeaways from an entire week of episodes. Sign up today at sweetfishmedia.com/big3. That's sweetfishmedia.com/big3.